great.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
So when we asked you to be in this project, how did you go about deciding what songs you'd sing? You'd perform. I know you don't sing.
You know what I was supposed to be singing today. Well, I thought of the ones that were easiest for me to do, I would say, and the ones that I would screw up on least. And proven not to be entirely the case so far, but I would say that was my rationale for choosing the pieces which I chose.
And what was that?
That last piece was the Capriccio Árabe by Francisco Tárrega. He was a Spanish guitarist born in the 1860s, and he was sort of the grandfather of classical guitar technique, as it were. The guitar in Spain up until that point had kind of fallen out of favor. The piano kind of was riding this wave of popularity as the Industrial Revolution created a steel frame for the piano. The guitar at that point was more of a folk kind of instrument, although it had this kind of glorious past. In the form of the lute, in the early 19th century, there was a good guitar culture. And Tárrega sort of reinvented the technique for the guitar and composed a lot of wonderful pieces, arranged a lot of wonderful pieces, and sort of set the standard for what it meant to be a guitarist at that point. So just like Tárrega, it's expected now of guitarists to be sort of writing their own pieces, arranging music, and that's sort of a tradition that exists perhaps less strongly in other traditions. Right.
What else have you got for us?
Well, in that, along those lines, I will play one of my own pieces then. This is something I wrote here in Corvallis, actually. Kind of was inspired by a walk I took in the McDonald Forest, just north of town, in the old growth part of that particular forest, on a day in which it was raining lightly, but the canopy in that particular part of the forest is so dense that you won't get wet if you walk around while it's raining. So I was trying to capture this rain without rain kind of feeling that I had. And for some reason that I'm not going to get into, I also am quoting the Game of Thrones theme in this particular piece.
All right.
Let's not ask any
Sounds
questions
like a
about that, right?
thinking about what students might want to know, or what prospective students might want to know about kind of balancing being a teacher with being a professional performer, and I'm curious how much you practice.
Right. It depends, really. If I have shows coming up, as I do, I will probably kick it up to about 3 hours a day. What I like to convince myself of is that it's not how much one practices, but the quality and efficiency of one's practice. So if I'm able to accomplish that which I need to get accomplished in a practice session, I will practice as little as possible. But the process by which one is able to become more efficient at practicing takes many, many years, and I don't pretend to know that I have all the answers in that way. But certainly I don't need to practice as much as I did when I was a teenager, for example, because I was still learning how to practice. That's really the skill that is taught through the course of lessons, is how do you learn to use your time in a way which wastes no time so you can accomplish the most. So my life now, in which I'm teaching and performing pretty often, is quite ideal in that way, because teaching in that way is a constant reminder for my own craft, I would say, that am I doing those things which I preach here in lessons. And very often I find myself slipping, and so it's a constant give and take with performing and with teaching.
What do you do here at OSU?
Well, I teach guitar, that is guitar classes, guitar lessons. I teach guitar ensemble here as well. I'm also teaching music theory at this point. And so I'm here teaching 5 days a week. Very often I'm going out in the state and the region generally to go perform and spread the word about there being a guitar program here, guitar option. And so I fly back to LA pretty regularly to perform. I'm performing quite often in Portland, here in Corvallis, and at upcoming months in Seattle as well. So trying to be a bit more regional in that way. And I suppose that's how I think of my role here at OSU right now.
What are you looking for in students who are coming to OSU? How can they prepare to study guitar?
Right. So the nice thing about the guitar, one of the nice things about the guitar, is that we take all sorts, right? I didn't start out playing guitar in the way that I play guitar now. In fact, it's a pretty rare thing for young American students to start off with classical guitar. So I started off playing Beatles songs on my dad's oversized dreadnought, and I got certain skill set out of that, and thankfully I was given, my first teacher taught me how to read music, which is not a benefit that many guitarists experience. Because as a guitarist, you don't necessarily need to know how to read music. You can strum a couple of chords and a whole world of music is open to you through that. And then a little bit later, I got involved in rock and roll and heavy metal and jazz, and everything was kind of pointing me in this direction. That is, I want to be able to play complicated music with which I can express a lot just by myself in a solo kind of way, in the same way that a pianist does. But I still gig around, that is on electric guitar if that's needed. I am still capable of sitting in a jazz band, and so I would say that an open mind in that way. And what I hope to do with the guitar program here is to teach in a way which recognizes kind of the demands that are placed on a guitarist in the 21st century. That is, are you able to arrange? Can you compose a little bit if necessary? Can you pick up an electric guitar and read through a jazz chart? And so that openness to different styles is very important.
That's great. Well, have you got another one for us?
Sure, yeah. This is one of the other cool things about the guitar is that it was the instrument of choice for people exploring the world in the 15 and 1600s, because you could just grab one and bring it on the ship. And as a result, there were guitar cultures exported to all parts of South America and all around the world. And I'm going to be playing a piece now by a Paraguayan composer named Agustin Barrios Magore. Written, it's a Brazilian dance he wrote for a tour of Brazil in 1921. This is a Machicha.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great.
Did it feel better that time?
It's fine.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, that was cool.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome.
All
Great
right.
interview and amazing guitar playing.